everybody, I know it's been a while since I've done a food demo, and so tonight I'm making a meat pie tourtiére, which is a Canadian, I wouldn't call it a delicacy, but it's a traditional Canadian dish. And I thought I'd take you through the steps of actually making the pastry from scratch as well as the filling. So what we're going to start off here with is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm just using the, what do you call it, Bob's Red Mill all-purpose unbleached flour. I already have in here 1 teaspoon of salt, and I've measured out 2/3 of a cup of lard. If you don't want to use lard or you don't know where to get it, then you can always use butter too. But if you're going to use butter, make sure you use the unsalted butter. And you want your fat to be nice and cold, and that's why I measured it out first into small chunks like this, just to keep everything cold. That's the trick to a flaky pastry. All right, so this is where I got the lard. It's Sloan's, which you can get here in Bangkok. And again, if you don't want to use lard, then go ahead with butter. All right, so I'm going to stick this in the food processor and let it go. And you basically want to get it so that it almost looks like a bit of a mealy texture. So I don't know if you can see that. We're going to try to turn on the lights here a bit more. I'm going to process it just a bit more. Okay. Bringing it down. And then the next step, which will go really, really quickly, is to add ice water, tablespoon by tablespoon. Process this one more time. So while the processor is running, I'm going to add tablespoon by tablespoon of ice water. There's ice in here, and this will eventually turn into a ball. So we'll do this very quickly. And there you go. So there you've got your pastry. You can see it's all come together. And the key is that you don't want to be handling your pastry too much. Everything needs to remain cold. So you try to handle as little as possible. So what I'm going to do is put this out here onto plastic. And then we need to let our dough set and rest for at least half an hour in the fridge. So I'm just going to press it together very gently, again trying to handle it as little as possible. And then this goes in the fridge and you let it rest. While the dough is resting, the other piece that I'm going to do, which I won't show you, but I just wanted to show you the size of the potatoes, is I'll be peeling these potatoes and cutting them into big chunks and cooking them in salted water. And the potato is going to help bring together the filling that I'll do later on. So let me do that, let the dough rest, and then we'll come back and we'll make the filling. Okay, so we're back, and right now I'm making the filling for the meat pie. In here I've ground a pound of ground pork and a pound of ground beef, 1 onion minced up fine, and about 3 or 4 cloves of garlic. So I cook this until it's brown, but also until the liquid that came out of that is all dry. And now I want to add in, this is half a cup of the potato water, so the water that I cooked the potato in, and also all the seasonings. So what we have here is cinnamon, some ground cloves that I freshly ground, some red peppercorns, you can use regular peppercorns, and then some nutmeg. So probably it's up to you. I mean, if you want to use sparingly, these flavors are all very strong, you can do so. I like to have a little bit more flavor, especially because I'm using beef. in this pie. My mother-in-law does this recipe, but she does it with pork only. So this is a bit of a variation to that recipe. And it also calls for, the recipe also calls for your favorite chicken or poultry seasoning. Rather than using poultry seasoning, I'm just using concentrated chicken stock. And so all of this is being mixed in now. And the potato water is quickly evaporating. And then we're going to want to give this a taste to see how much salt we need to add after all that. The potato water already had some salt in it, so this is pretty good. I will add a bit more, and the reason being is I haven't actually added the potatoes in yet, so that's what I'm going to do next. So I'm turning off the heat and using my trusty potato ricer to mash, and you guys have seen this before, probably one of my favorite kitchen gadgets, which gives you perfectly, beautifully mashed potatoes every time. So adding in more of this, and then once I add in the potato and mix it up, I'll give it another taste, and then I'll let it cool. And then we'll move into rolling out the dough and baking our pie. So adding in the rest of that potato. And ideally, if you have a deep dish pie pan, that would be the best. I'm using, I borrowed from my neighbor because I don't know what happened to my other pie pan. And so this filling will probably be too much for one pie. If I can get a pie and maybe a smaller pie out of this, that's what we'll be doing. So mixing in the mashed potato. And you'll see that the mashed potato helps to bring the filling together. So it's more like a, you don't have to add anything to keep the mixture together because you've got the potato here. So mixing up. All right, the potato's pretty much mixed in. Give it another taste. That's really good. Practically tastes like Christmas or home. Okay, so we're gonna let this filling cool and continue to allow the pastry to chill. And then when we come back, I'll be rolling out the pastry. Okay, so now the filling has cooled. I've already rolled out half of the dough and put it in the pie plate. And you'll see it's not absolutely perfect, but that's okay. I think I'm not much of a pastry chef, but I do find when you make the pastry yourself, it makes all the difference because it's just so delicious and flaky when you take it out that nobody really cares that it doesn't look absolutely perfect. So then we stick the stuffing into the pie, and I like to actually overstuff my pies a bit so that it's like you get the really good meat ratio to the pastry. So just mounding all that. As much as possible. I might reserve a little bit extra just to make some mini pies with any pastry that's left over. We'll see. All right. And then next step is actually getting the top onto your pie, which you can do like so. There you go. And then neatening up the edges, just like that. I'll use the excess for those mini pies I was talking about. That's why I have the little cupcakes here. Okay. And then there's different ways you can try and decorate the edges. You can pinch with your fingers like this. You can use a fork. It's really up to you. Again, at the end of the day, what people care about is what's inside the pie, and that the filling was actually made with real lard and it's flaky. So, okay, and then I have here an egg wash. It's just an egg, and I've added some water. I actually used some of that preserved or reserved liquid from the potato just because it had a bit of salt in it. And that's going to give the pie on the top a nice sheen. There we go. And the last thing you'll need to do is to make sure there's a vent for steam, so you can have like a nice little pattern like that. And then your pie's ready to go into the oven. So I preheated the oven at 400 degrees. I was making pizza last night, so I still have the pizza stone in the oven, and I'm going to try and experiment and see if it makes a difference to help cook the pie from the top, bottom up. So at 400 degrees, and cook for 30 to 35 minutes, keeping an eye on the temperature and also the brownness of the pie. So we'll come back when we have the finished product in 30 to 35 minutes. Okay, so we're back. I've taken the pie out of the oven. So this is the finished product. It's browned nicely. And we're just going to cut into this. You want to let your pie rest for at least 10 minutes, just so that it stays, like all the juices stay together. Oh. Do you want to bake these?
Guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we'll just go with this for now. And the first piece is always the messiest, but that's okay. We've got all of that flaky pastry. Goes with the pie. And tonight for Dave too, he gets his favorite vegetable, Brussels sprouts on the side, although I can see he's eaten probably half of them already. And in terms of what you have with the pie, in our household, the only thing that Dave actually has with ketchup is pork pie and maybe grilled cheese. So that's going to be dinner for tonight. So thanks for joining, everyone. And I'll be trying to think of a few more food demos to do in the future so it's not such a long time between demos. Enjoy your tortilla.